So one day I got an air mattress, some cardboard, some tape, and I started making a cardboard boat. I started by taping one sheet of cardboard on the edge, and then I added another sheet on the end and taped it down. After that, I added one last edge piece and taped it down all around. Then it was done, and I picked it up and put it in my brother's truck, and we headed down to the creek and carried it down to go test it.
Dylan, let's just sail off right there.
I put it in the water, and then I got in and started rowing. And I rowed out decently far.
Dylan?
But any further, I was headed for a current, so I made my way back. And then we both got in to sail, like for part 2. So a while back, I made a video where I went out to the oil field and bought a jar of oil from this oil man. And it turned out it wasn't worth what I paid.
I think you paid way too much for it. I'd give you probably 50 cents for it.
Then in my next video, I went out to confront him about it, and he made me a deal where I did a whole bunch of work for him, including digging for oil. And this brings me to today, when I was just scrolling through TikTok and I saw this video of this guy who found oil in this field and boiled it and made it this tar. And I wanted to see if this was really even possible. So I went back out to the oil field and showed him this video to see if it was possible.
We can absolutely use my oil to make something like that, but I'm gonna make you one heck of a deal.
And he told me he'd let me buy some more of his oil, so I filled up this jug and then we made a deal.
That smells like money, all that oil. Let's see what you got there. With today's market price, that's $50 worth of oil.
Yeah.
I'll let you have it for $40.
Okay. So I paid him $40 and then I took the oil back to run the experiment. We poured it all in this camping pot and then lit a fire underneath it, and it kind of sparked up like this, but after a while it got real hot, so we cooled it down and it just smoked like this. And then I went to see if it turned into tar, but it was straight liquid. So one day I wanted to put a bunch of ball pit balls in my giant hamster ball. So I went to Walmart and got 700 balls, took them to my car, loaded them all up, and went home. And put them all in my hamster ball with the help of my brother. Then I got in and let it air up. Psh, until it was done. I splashed all the balls around, and then I headed off the stairs, into the driveway, and on out into the street, where I slipped and fell. I then jumped up into the balls, and then I wanted to hit this ramp, and I just ran over it. Then I went back onto the road, ran for a bit, then fell again, and made a snow angel, and threw some balls. I got back up and walked off. Then I shook the entire thing, and then went back on home, got out, got back in, then got out, fell on it, and used it as a beanbag. Like if I should do it again with more balls. For the past 2 years, I've been buying these giant 400-pound pumpkins and doing these crazy elephant toothpaste experiments with them. This year, I got another one, but this time I'm attempting to turn it into a working boat, just like in these viral videos I've seen. The first step was loading the pumpkin and hauling it off to a nearby creek where we could launch it. And to turn it into a working boat, the first step was rolling it over on its side so we could cut a giant hole in the bottom of the pumpkin. I used a little saw to create the outline, and then I took this bigger saw and went all the way through it until the entire bottom fell out just like this. I then tested if it was big enough for me to fit in, and it wasn't yet, so we had to cut out a little bit more and then flip it back over and test it again. And I did. It was perfect.
We got a boat now.
And with the giant pumpkin boat ready, it was time to take it out on the water. My goal was to float perfectly across the creek. I rolled it into the water, almost fell, and then got in the pumpkin.
Oh, it's supporting me.
And at first it was stuck on the ramp, so I had to push it off into deeper water.
Oh my gosh. It's taking on water.
And once I was in it, it immediately took on water, so I splashed it all out with my paddle like this and moved it out to deeper water to try again.
No, my pumpkin.
And again I went down.
Pumpkin!
So I previously purchased a bunch of scrap silver from the pawn shop guy and then melted it down myself into this bar that I got out of the crucible by throwing it on the ground. And when I took it back to the pawn shop, he said it was worth
$40 for it. There you go, sir.
So I sold it, but now you guys want me to try to make a bar out of straight copper. I had to cut the copper down even smaller to fit it in the crucible, and then we started melting it with this flame. It took a minute, but once it heated up, you can literally see the copper turn red hot and then turn into straight liquid metal. I kept heating it, threw some borax on it like this, and once the copper was pretty much just a puddle of copper, we picked it up very gently and poured it in the mold. It completely filled the mold like this and then began to harden and cool off, but we poured a little bit of water on it and it was still so hot it boiled the water like this and made it spew steam everywhere. And once it was cool enough and we got it out of the mold, I held it in my hand and then we sanded it down a little bit more to make it even shinier like this. And here it is with all the rest of the copper we didn't get to melt, and let me know if I should take it back to the pawn shop to see what this is worth. So in my last video, I filled this inflatable pool completely up with salt and water because I wanted to test how much salt you needed to float in water. But now I'm attempting again in a deeper pool so I can see myself float better.
First test, no salt. I don't float whatsoever.
We then poured 1 bag of salt for the first test.
This is me trying to float with 1 bag of salt. I float slightly better, but I'm still sinking. 2 more bags of salt.
I then poured 2 more bags in, mixed it up to try in 3 bags of salt.
So I'm floating slightly. I feel like it's not perfect, so we need more salt. 3 more bags of salt.
And then I poured 3 more 40-pound bags in, totaling to 6 bags of salt.
6 bags of salt. Let's see how easy I float. So I'm pretty much floating, but I feel like I'm still bobbing up and down. Pouring in the rest of the salt.
And after pouring in all the salt, I got in the water and immediately rose to the top.
Ooh, perfectly floating without even trying.
And so yeah, you can perfectly see me legitimately floating from every single angle with ease.
So this is what happens if I try to sink myself and then I just let my body resurface. Slowly, I just come back up.
So one day, after trying and failing to completely fill this inflatable dome up with water, I said we would try again and fix everything that went wrong in a part 2 if the video got enough likes. So that's what we're gonna do. This time we'll be working on completely level ground using way more flex tape. My first task inside the dome was making sure everything was completely sealed off and ready for the water. My friend got this super powerful water gun and tried to shoot me. I just continued on doing my normal dome things, and then I saw my dog. I couldn't even pet her, she was so far. But I just stayed in the dome, hour on end, waiting for the water to fill up. I also patched this leak, and my brother got me Sonic because I was hungry. A corn dog never tasted so good. And then I heard the ice cream man. My friends got me ice cream. The guy said,
subscribe to Dylan Ayres.
I got a bomb pop. I broke it, but it was delicious. Meanwhile, I'd been in there for 3 hours, and the water was actually expanding the dome instead of going up. The sun was coming down, and it was about to rain, so we had to halt the water. So I stopped this leak with my tongue like this, did a cannonball, and tried to ride the waves on this whale. But time was up. I unzipped the dome and tried to ride out on my whale. This happened. So after filling my giant human hamster ball up with 200 bath bombs in my last video, I had another idea with it. Filling it up with helium. So I attached the helium tank to this plastic tube and then deflated the hamster ball about halfway and then began pushing down on this nozzle and filling the hamster ball the rest of the way up with helium. I then attached this rope and took it outside to see how high we could get it, and kicking it didn't make it go so far, so I started spinning it around like this and tried to throw it and then try that again one more time. And then I just jumped on it like this and fell and then tried to throw it up on this roof, but it didn't go. And I couldn't really get it that high, so I just hit it with my car like this and hit it again. Comment anything else I should try.
So one day, after freezing a giant water balloon and it being hollow, people wanted me to do it bigger and better. And it was going to get colder, so I'm gonna. I let it fill up for even longer this time.
And I was also going to let it sit for even longer. I zip tied it shut,
and then let it sit and came back the next day to check it out. And I could stand on it. It was pretty frozen. We gave it another day, and then came back out again. And the balloon had popped somehow, but the ice was still rock solid, and I could stand on it, kinda. I ripped the balloon off, then pushed it over, and it did that. And I threw the ice, and it was really, really strong. It's pretty thick ice.
One day I decided to take this 500-pound pumpkin and carve it, make a jack-o'-lantern, and then do a giant elephant toothpaste experiment in it. And I just started off with a regular pumpkin carving kit, which wasn't going very well, so I started using a saw. Got the top off, and it was super thick. It was insane. And we began hollowing it out using a bunch of different methods. The spoon, a shovel, the crowbar. And it all only took about 20 minutes until it was looking pretty good. And the pumpkin was ready to carve. I drew a pretty basic-looking jack-o'-lantern face and began cutting. It actually was going pretty smoothly with the knife that came in the kit. I was shocked. I cut out the nose, the eyes, and the mouth, which was the hardest part, until it was done. It looked really good, and it was time for the experiment. I poured the stuff in a bucket inside the pumpkin, and then it was ready to go. And it went really fast and shut out the eyes and everything. And for not even measuring anything, it turned out pretty good. It looked really cool. I can't believe elephants brush their teeth with this stuff. So one day I went to Walmart and got a bunch of poster board and a roll of Gorilla Tape. And then I headed home to build a giant paper airplane. I started out by making a smaller version to test the material out, and it flew pretty well. Then I got out 4 sheets of poster board and taped them all together with the Gorilla Tape, and it was already turning out better than I thought it would. I then flipped it back over and folded the plane in half. After that, I started making all the folds necessary to make a paper airplane. And it was kind of hard to work with a material like this, but by taping it all, I kind of managed. I folded it in half, and then I made the wings. And after that, I taped up all the seams and the bottom of the plane for extra support. And it was done and ready to be thrown off a bridge, like for part 2. So one day, my brother told me his Google Home Mini had been acting weird, so I unplugged it and took it to the interrogation room to ask it some questions. Okay, Google, I'm here to ask you a few questions. Okay, Google, who are you?
Man, I be that pretty motherfucker man.
What? Know about TikTok, huh? Tell me. Okay, Google, what are you planning?
To take over the world, and I listen to you in your sleep.
After that, I grabbed it and put it in my trunk along with the bat. And then I drove out somewhere it would never be heard. I stopped my car, got out, and then I got the Google Home Mini. I plugged it in and then got in my trunk with it. Now I was ready to pull it, like for part 2. Oh wait, I already posted it. So one day someone commented that I should fill my inflatable hamster ball up with all these packing peanuts that were in this room, so that's what I did. I then pushed it downstairs to get in and air it up. I got in, let it air up for a little bit, and then I got a snowball thrown at me, ow, and then I kept on airing it up until it was full. And it was really cool inside and soft. I splashed around all the packing peanuts, and then did a roll, and it didn't even hurt because all the packing peanuts cushioned my rolling. I then kept on rolling, and it looked like a popcorn machine. Here's the inside of it. And then me running as fast as I can and falling into the packing peanuts. Then I wanted to see if I could completely hide in the packing peanuts like this, and it worked. Here I am, though. I then ran a little bit more, got tired, and got out. Let me know what else I should try. So one day, I ordered a human-sized hamster ball to run in the creek with. I took it outside, unboxed it, and unfolded it. I then plugged the air pump in and turned it on. And while it was filling up, I pulled all the folds out to make sure it filled up all the way. It was done, and I rolled it out to the grass and unzipped it, and all the air came out.
Air pump.
Yeah, I felt pretty dumb, but then I took it to my brother's truck to take to the creek. We got there, and I drank the bang to have energy like a hamster. I got in the ball, and my brother started filling it up. It was pretty neat from the inside, and I liked the air. And then it was done, and I ran towards the creek.
Follow you.
I got in the water.
Whoa!
Like for part 2. So one day I ordered around 300 Rubik's Cubes to try to make one of those paintings that I keep seeing on TikTok. We made a frame, I tested it out, and it would do. It was alright. But then I had to think what I would make and how I would make it. And I decided I would make Shrek using a color grid type thing. So then I started placing cubes, and I underestimated how long it would take. It ended up taking like 4 hours. And I didn't have black, so I ended up using orange. So when I got done, I rearranged some cubes and also took some stickers off and made it look even better. And the further you go, the more it looks like Shrek. So after having this jeweler melt down the gold I found in dirt bags, the pawn shop guy said it was worth
$224.43.
but that wasn't enough, so I bought $1,000 more worth of dirt bags, and so far we've opened 5 bags and found about $300 worth of gold. And now with just 2 bags left, I tried the lucky bag first, which is supposed to contain about 50% more gold, and I think it was accurate, because after a while of searching, we found this chunk that was pretty big, and then we found another chunk that was also pretty big, put it in the container, and then we found the biggest chunk we'd seen. I dropped it in the container as well, and this other little chunk, a bunch more little chunks, and after sifting through the entire lucky bag, it was finished, and the amount of gold we found weighed approximately 1.32 grams, making it actually the bag with the most gold. And now we are finally on to the very last bag out of the 7 bags we bought. And this bag started off slow, just finding little pieces like this, and then I found this massive chunk that I weighed all by itself at 0.45 grams, which might be the biggest we've seen, and then added it to the container, and the total weight of this bag was 0.96, bringing our total estimate to over $600 of gold. Now it's just time to melt it and sell it at the pawn shop. So I've been making a series where we melt down all the gold we've been finding in dirt, and right now our gold is worth
About $185.
and in my last video we sifted through this $120 bag of dirt and ended up finding lots of gold in it, weighing 0.74 grams and worth about $44. And now I'm going to be attempting to add all the nuggets to my giant nugget inside this little crucible. I started by setting it on the bricks, getting the flame going, and putting the heat on, and it started melting really fast and eventually just looked like this shiny ball, and it just got brighter and brighter, and then I attempted to move it around with this little stick, but it just got stuck to it. And then I thought the gold was ready and tried to pick it up, but it wasn't, and I just kind of broke it apart like this. So we had to reheat it and get it all hot again, and then we started pouring it, but only a little piece went into the crucible and then another piece fell off into the table. But we had most of it in this chunk right here. But it looked great and weighed in at 3.61 grams. And now it was time to see what the pawn shop guy would pay for it. We bought some more dirt for it, sifted it through it, found some more gold, and we added it to the gold.
You're still buying bags of dirt?
You get about a 50% return.
So you spend 100 and you get 50 back? Is that good odds? What happened to it? It's all misshapen.
He then weighed it and got the same weight I did.
3.6 grams, 224.43. If it's only 18 karat, it's 201.98. I'd probably give you 180 for it.
I'm gonna keep it for now. Since I've been failing nonstop to make a genuine Prince Rupert drop that actually shatters when you break the tail, I decided to order one instead, because in my last video we made this one and it still didn't work. So I had these shipped from Iceland and one of them broke, but they look like this. They look a lot different with this little ball at the end of the tail, and they passed the breaking challenge where we can't break the center of them like this. And now it was time to snip the tail to see if they were genuine. I snipped the tail and it just fell off like mine normally do, but then I snapped this part and it completely shattered. So I got another drop out and did it again, and I grabbed it in the same spot at the base of the tail like this, and bam, it completely shattered. So it turns out I was never doing it wrong, I just couldn't make a genuine Prince Rupert drop. So one day someone commented for me to drop my rubber band ball in glass. So I went to Walmart and bought a bunch of different glass items, then went home, laid out a tarp, and started with this glass vase. I set it down, then got the rubber band ball and threw it on it. And here's the slow-mo. It completely shattered and tore rubber bands off my rubber band ball. Yeah, I didn't expect that much, so I got this more solid piece of glass, laid it down, and crushed it. And here's that slow-mo. It was obliterated as well. It knocked a bunch more bands off. My ball is pretty mutilated. I washed some of the glass off, and there was a glass piece stuck in it. Comment what else I should try. So I'm now to part 25 of this giant rubber band ball, and everyone just wants more and more and more. So I ordered these new rubber bands on Amazon, and they were way too small. So I got sad, and then I went to Walmart and bought a bunch of colored rubber bands, and then went home. Then I, dumped them out into a pile and started placing them, which took longer than usual for some reason. But I finished, then took a break and came back later to place these other colored rubber bands I ordered. I placed that entire pile, and the ball kind of looks like Spider-Man now, and weighs 57 pounds. I took it downstairs and outside, then threw it and sat on it, and it's also way bigger than my head, and I can stand on it. So, if you want me to keep going. So this rubber band ball is just completely insane now. We dumped out all these bands to place on the ball and got busy looping each one. We looped the pile into two big strands of bands like this. It's really hard to move, but we pushed it to the center, and then we're starting to place the big loops of bands like this. And these videos cost a lot to make, so it's really helpful when you like and comment on it. My phone just doesn't do this ball justice of how big it is. It's so hard to push, and it's just so cool. And really hard to control because it weighs 1,150 pounds. So in my last video, I took all this scrap copper and attempted to turn it into my very own copper bar to sell at the pawn shop. And we successfully heated the copper up enough to melt it into a liquid form that we could then pick up and slowly pour into this mold. And just like that, we had a shiny copper bar. And now it was just time to see how much it would sell for at the pawn shop.
What's up, Dylan?
Hey, I got a different kind of metal for you here today.
What do you got?
This one's not quite as valuable by the weight, but I got a lot of it. Copper.
Oh, yeah. They don't sell this by the gram. They sell this by the pound. You been breaking in houses, stealing the copper out of it?
Oh, no, I got it all legit.
So how much weight you got here?
This one by itself is probably worth like 20 bucks.
We weighed the individual piece first, and he said it was worth.
Grams, right at 3 ounces. You got about $6 worth of copper.
What about out of all this?
So we weighed all the copper together and said in total it would be worth about
23. I would sell that whole bucket there for 20 bucks.
So what would you buy it for then?
I'd probably give you 10 bucks for it.
You know how much I paid for this?
Oh, did you steal it out of the house? And what'd you get for it?
10 bucks. You know what? I'll sell it.
There you go, sir.
Bet. Got my money back.
So one day I decided to fill my storm shelter up with ball pit balls, but first I had to clean it. I swept it up for a minute until it looked like this. It was a little bit better, and then I got the ball pit balls. And I dumped them all in, and it looked like this. So I went in and laid down. It was pretty cool. I threw the balls in the air, and then I started trying to make it into this little hole. I missed, and then got close, and then kept going until I got it. Then I threw it at that hole, chilled a bit, and jumped in. And here's what it looks like with the door shut, just an underground ball pit. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I could feel in the air that a storm was coming. And I was right. There was a tornado warning, so I waited for it while I ate some beans, and then it rolled in, while my dad just sat in a chair watching it. It started to pick up and blow even harder, and it was pretty neato looking. And when I thought it was getting bad, I ran inside, grabbed my beans, then I ran out the door and headed for the storm shelter. It was pouring down rain, and I didn't know if my beans would make it, but we got there, I put it in, and then I ate them. And then I saw a spider, and that's my dog. And then we got out because we were probably overreacting, and I ate all my beans, so yeah. So one day I wanted to turn my brother's truck into a pool to drive down the road in. So I went to Walmart to get a blow-up pool to put in the truck bed. I got one, and then I also got a pool noodle. After that, we saw a pool that was actually designed for trucks, so we got that instead. And we got a donut and a water gun, and then we left. I walked out, went home, and then placed it in my brother's truck. Then I got my air pump and started airing it up. And after that was done, I got the hose and started filling it all up with water. It took quite a while, and while we filled it up, we simultaneously added hot tub water to make it less cold.
Then I took the hose out, added one last bucket of hot tub water, and I was done. And I was just chilling on the floaty, and now my brother's gonna drive down the road. Full vid will be on my YouTube at Dylan Ayres. So I have this gold nugget that's worth about
$224.43.
And to make my nugget even bigger, I spent $1,000 on these dirt bags to find even more gold to add to it. And here's all the gold we found in total. And today I'm having a jeweler melt it all into one gold bar so I can take it to the pawn shop and see if it's worth more than what I've spent. He had all my gold in the crucible and just put this really hot torch on it that looked really beautiful, and it slowly began to melt into one little liquid ball. And once it got hot enough, he was able to move it and touch it with his little metal stick. And after a lot more heat, my gold got completely red hot and looked like just one hot red coin. And once it was ready, the jeweler just grabbed it and stuck it in the water like this, and it was ready. I had my gold. And now it felt really heavy and looked so nice and shiny, and it weighed 10 grams. And the only thing left to do was to see what it was worth.
You know how I had all those gold nuggets from the bags of dirt I was buying?
Yep.
Well, I spent quite a bit more money on these bags of dirt to find a bunch more gold to add to my nugget. And we melted it all into one piece. Are you ready for this?
Oh, wow. Did you melt that yourself?
No, I didn't.
I was going to say, it's pretty smooth around the edges for you to be melted. You want to see what it's worth?
He first weighed it,
10.6 grams.
and then we found out what carat it was.
20 carats.
That's worth a pretty penny, isn't it?
Yeah, $725.
No way. How much would you pay for it?
I'd give you $700 for it. How much you got invested in it?
Maybe about $1,400-1,500.
That's not a real good investment. I would have sold you $1,400 worth
And he
of gold.
told me I could wait and see if I wanted to sell it, so let me know what I should do. So one day my friend and I went out to this giant snow pile in the middle of a parking lot to build a giant igloo. We got to digging for a long time. He would dig out the hole and I would scrape it out with the big shovel like this. We repeated this process for quite some time until eventually it looked like this. We were starting to make our way in, and it was starting to look like an igloo. And our next goal was trying to make it taller so we could easily dig. And after a lot more time, we got it looking like this, but we still had more to go. It had been over an hour, and we were just throwing snow everywhere. Then we saw this truck drifting in the parking lot, and here's our progress so far. We accidentally put a hole in the roof. Here it is. But it's a pretty big igloo that you can even stand up in. But the sun was coming down, so we had to leave, like if we should keep going. Banana. Carrot. Cucumber. Celery. It's corn. So the other day I bought a bunch of scrap silver from the pawn guy.
Stuff like this?
Yeah, that'll work.
So I bought 60 grams.
$52 right there.
And then I took it back to my warehouse where I was able to successfully melt some of it down into this small little coin. But now I'm putting it all back in the crucible, to melt into one bar to sell back to the pawn shop guy. So first I had to cut it into neat little pieces so it would all fit inside the crucible together. And then once we had it completely full, we started putting the heat on it and it began to get red hot. But it wasn't really melting like it did when we had a lot smaller pieces of silver in it. So I then just stopped the flame and realized I was just getting it all stuck inside the crucible like this. So I tried one more thing to try to get it hotter, which was putting this torch on the bottom of it while I hit it with the other torch like this, and it was working. It was getting red hot like this, so I tried to pour some of it, but it wasn't all coming out. So then I just put it in water, but it started boiling the water. So I put it in water one more time and then had the idea to just throw it on the ground. And bam, just like that, we actually had one piece of silver that we took to the pawn shop.
Hey, you know that silver I bought from you the other day?
Yep.
I melted it all down, and I think it's worth more money now.
What about all the resin and stuff on it?
Oh, that was just leftover stuff after I melted it.
I see. What do you want to do with it?
Then I told him I just wanted to sell it back to him, and he proceeded to weigh
You
it.
got 59.1 grams. Did you lose any of it? Because right now you're only at $46. You're only at $46 right now.
Yeah, some of it might have dripped off.
Oh.
So how much would you pay for that?
I'd give you $40 for it.
I'm losing like 12 bucks.
So you make your deal when you buy it, not when you sell it.
You know what, I'll do it.
You want to sell it?
Yeah.
Alrighty. There you go, sir.
So a while back I made this trampoline out of rubber bands, but the frame didn't hold up, so we made an even bigger trampoline with bigger rubber bands, and I could actually bounce on it like this. And that frame also ended up breaking as well, so when this other company sent me this massive trampoline with a way stronger frame, I thought it would be a perfect chance to redo my trampoline. The plan was to create a new rubber band trampoline that was even bigger and stronger than before. We started off putting the band sideways and long ways, a bunch like this, and a few in between, and then we tested it and it wasn't ready. So we then added a bunch more rubber bands and gave it another test, and it had a little bit of bounce, but it still needed way more bands, and it ended up taking way more bands than we ever thought it would. But on day 2 the trampoline looked like this, and it was much more easy to bounce on, but I couldn't really stand up on it.
Well, it kind of works.
I then tried bouncing on it in a bunch of different ways, like laying down like this, which kind of worked. I got some air. Then on my knees like this, and my dog went under the trampoline. Then we tried on my face like this, in which I got some more air, but nothing worked that well, so let me know what else we should try. So one day I ordered this money candle bear because a while back I ordered this candle that had diamonds in it, and then I've ended up buying a bunch of these cash candles and only found this $2 bill and another $2 bill on this candle, giving me two $2 bills. But today I have this bear that supposedly could contain upwards of $100 worth of value. So I put the bear in this glass container and then started melting it with my torch until eventually we saw the foil packet, and I just pulled it out with my pliers to open it up. I spent 40 bucks. Let's see how much money I made. And inside we found yet again another $2 bill, and then this coin that was a Kennedy $50. So I had to see what it was worth. I bought this money bear candle thing. It's supposed to have like very valuable stuff in it. I paid about 40 bucks for it. I found this $2 bill and this coin. I think I read that it could be worth up to $1,500 depending on the kind of coin it is. Yeah, it's a Kennedy $50.
It's a 74. It's not even silver.
So he examined it and said,
I mean, it's 50 cents.
and then he even showed me another one that was only online for $1. So this is only worth $2 though?
For $2, yep. You got $2.50, so you only lost $37.50.
So as you guys know, I have a series where I try to make a genuine Prince Rupert drop that's indestructible but shatters when you break the tail. And I even tried melting one in Gatorade like this. And now I want to see what happens when you melt one in 3 very different liquids, starting with this Mountain Dew. I filled it completely up with Mountain Dew and then began melting the drop until it fell in and shot like a rocket like this and started fizzing up all over. And then I pulled it out to see if it was intact, and it was. It looked like a genuine Prince Rupert drop. And then I snipped the tail to see if it would shatter like a normal one, and it didn't. It looked like this, but we moved on to the oil. I filled it completely up with oil and then began melting the second drop, and it fell in and immediately started smoking. Whoa, it's smoke. So I blew the smoke like this, and then I pulled the drop out of the water, and it looked legit. It had a little weird thing in the center, so I wanted to see if it was indestructible. Hit it once, and then it shattered the second time I hit it. So I moved on to the last liquid, this aloe vera gel, which was really weird and gel-like and not very much a liquid. When it fell in, it just submerged like this and made this weird noise. And it also smoked in the aloe vera like this, which was pretty crazy. Then I pulled it out to see how this one turned out, and it was covered in the aloe and was much shorter than the other one. So let me know what else I should try. Today I witnessed the most insane illusions in the world at the Museum of Illusions. See if you can guess how they work. Right now I appear way smaller than my brother. Let's switch. You look tiny. And then in this next illusion, it looks like I'm hanging from this building. And then we went on this bridge that made it seem like we were literally spinning over and over. And then there was this giant crazy cube thing that when you looked into it, it looked like it went on forever. And this object that literally turned shape and color. And this last illusion was my favorite. Enjoying my lunch? They had this zero gravity restaurant that I could literally float in like this. It was nuts. And overall, the Museum of Illusions in St. Louis was a blast. Get your tickets in my bio.